Picture this. You're cruising at altitude in a Bombardier Q400. You know, a highly sophisticated twin-engine turboprop aircraft. Everything's completely routine until suddenly the control column just refuses to move. Forward, backward, nothing. You literally cannot point the nose of the aircraft up or down. You've just encountered one of the absolute most terrifying emergencies in aviation, a pitch control jam. In those split seconds, panic is just not an option. Pure, structured discipline is the only way out. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the exact life-saving emergency protocols for a pitch control jam recovery in the Q400.
Here's the roadmap for our survival guide today. The Q400 pitch jam, first try, overpower, the disconnect maneuver, claiming aircraft control, and finally, airspeed and safe landing. To effortlessly memorize this exact sequence, we're going to use a simple but brilliant memory palace trick, AORDOC. Section 1. The Q400 pitch jam. All right, so the clock is absolutely ticking, and the very first letter of our memory trick, A for assist, comes right into play. The moment the pilot flying realizes the controls are locked, they've got to react instantly. The very first physical action they need to take is to manually kill the autopilot if it happens to be engaged. See, the autopilot might actually try to fight the jam, or worse, mask how severe the situation really is. So it has to be taken completely out of the loop right away. But they don't do this in silence. The pilot flying has to loudly, clearly make this specific call out. Pitch, jam, assist. Now, this isn't just some casual request. It is a secret, strict verbal command. It instantly alerts the pilot monitoring that a severe emergency is underway, legally bringing both crew members into a highly coordinated state of alert. Section 2, first try, overpower. Okay, now we hit the first O in our AORDOC trick, overpower. If conditions permit, the pilots will actually systematically attempt to use brute force to break that jam loose. But here's the real key. They do not just wildly yank on the controls at the same time, no way. They prepare, and they overpower each control strictly one at a time. This is entirely guided by the pilot flying. By working sequentially like this, they ensure they're applying targeted force without fighting against each other's muscles, trying to physically dislodge whatever is binding up the mechanics. But you know, we've got to ask the terrifying question. What if brute force completely fails? What if those control columns are practically set in concrete and they just will not budge? Section 3. The disconnect maneuver. This is where the procedure shifts entirely from raw brute force to precise technical finesse, bringing us to the R and the D of our memory trick. R stands for relax, and D stands for disconnect. The first step here is actually deeply counterintuitive during a massive adrenaline spike. The pilots must relax the force on the control column. You literally have to let go of the tension first. Only once that tension is relaxed can they move to the disconnect phase, pulling the pitch disconnect handle and rotating it 90 degrees.
But right before that handle is pulled, the pilot flying delivers this exact verbal warning: pitch disconnect. This way, everyone in the cockpit knows exactly what irreversible mechanical action is about to go down.
There's this highly visible yellow and black striped handle right there in the Q400 cockpit. When the pilot pulls that and twists it 90 degrees, it actually mechanically splits the pitch control linkage between the left and right sides of the cockpit. It completely isolates the jammed side from the free side. Pretty ingenious, right? Section 4, claiming aircraft control. All right, now that the controls are physically separated, we arrive at the second O in our acronym, ownership. With that linkage split, one pilot's control column is still going to be jammed solid, but the other pilot's column should now move freely and control the elevator. So they have to carefully test the controls, again, strictly one at a time, following the pilot flying's guidance. They're basically diagnosing the aircraft in real time to figure out exactly whose side has the free control. The exact moment the pilot with the working, free control column confirms they can pitch the aircraft, they make this definitive, strict verbal claim: I have control. And immediately, without missing a beat, the other pilot, the pilot monitoring, must legally and verbally confirm this transfer of command by responding, you have control. There can be absolutely zero ambiguity about who is flying the airplane at this stage.
Section 5. Airspeed and safe landing. So, we've successfully isolated the jam, bringing us to the final letter of our trick, C, which stands for checklist. The pilot flying officially triggers this final phase by calling out pitch jam checklist.
This is the cue for the pilot monitoring to open the book and begin formally carrying out the written steps. Let's look at what those steps actually demand.
The most immediate concern here is airspeed, and the magic number you've got to memorize is 170 knots indicated airspeed, or KIAs. Basically, if the jam happened while you were flying below 170 KIAs, your maximum speed going forward is absolutely capped right there at 170. However, if you were flying fast, above 170 KIAs when the jam struck, you have to maintain your speed at the exact time of the jam and treat that number as your absolute maximum. Now, the really crucial takeaway is that flying the aircraft in this separated state is going to feel drastically different. First off, you absolutely must not engage the autopilot. Because you're now only using half the elevator system, the pitch control is going to be noticeably degraded. And the physical forces you feel on the control column, they'll be way lighter than normal. Because of these severe aerodynamic limitations, the pilots are held to strict landing conditions. They've got to use flap 10 or 15, and they have to choose an airport with minimum crosswind and minimum turbulence. The plane is just too vulnerable for a rough weather approach at this point.
Finally, once the speeds are set, the aerodynamic changes are understood, and a safe airport is locked in, the pilot monitoring delivers the final resolving phrase: checklist complete. The emergency procedure is officially executed. Assist, overpower, relax, disconnect, ownership, checklist, AOR DOC. In the terrifying seconds of a pitch control jam, flight crews simply do not have time to panic. They rely on sheer structured memorization and absolute discipline to save lives. It really makes you wonder, under the immense, deafening pressure of a real in-flight emergency, would your muscle memory take over? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep this memory trick in your back pocket, and I'll catch you next time as we decode another fascinating protocol.